talking about Prom Night 2, which was, I mean, did we all love it? Yes! We actually had to talk about how, Bruce, you were involved with the Revue Cinema many moons ago, and it's basically come full circle now that we're playing your iconic movie.
Yeah, it was, my partner and I reopened this theater 50 years ago. In the summer of 72. And yeah, so it's like full circle being back here and having a film I did showing.
Woo! All right, so Prom Night 2. 2019, this was featured on Joe Bob Briggs's Last Drive-In. Last year it was on the cover of Fangoria magazine. How did this get made? Did a whole episode about it where Seth Rogen praised it as a great Canadian horror film, and Charlize Theron wanted to give your actor her Oscar. Yes. Like, right? Did you see this film becoming the major cult classic that it ended up being nowadays when you were making it?
No. It originated with me. It started with, there was a company called Simcom, Peter Simpson, and they were doing 3 movies all at the same time, and they sent me the 3 scripts, said, which script would you like to do? They were very surprised that I picked a script called The Haunting of Hamilton High, which was this film. And they were surprised, but I just thought the script was so smart, and that mix of comedy and horror, it just intrigued me as being a bit of a challenge to do. So they said fine, and from there we went ahead and made it, and we shot it in Edmonton, and I think that was because for financial reason it was an investor in Edmonton. They wanted to bring films to Alberta. So it was decided that we would shoot in Edmonton, which we did. So that's how it got started. And then when the film was finished, Peter took it to Los Angeles, had a bunch of screenings with the studios, basically trying to get somebody to pick up the distribution rights for the States. And it got into, and it was well liked, it got into a bidding war, and Samuel Goldwyn Jr. Bought it. He won the bidding war. So before the film was ever released, it was already into a profit. They sold it for obviously more money than it cost to make. So
yes, and it killed at the box office, and we all love it nowadays. Now, we love it. How did the critics in America versus Canada feel about this movie?
The critics, and it's always been a bugaboo with me, but the critics in Toronto either gave it a terrible review, or across the country, terrible reviews, or just dismissed it entirely. In the States, it was very well reviewed, but phenomenally reviewed in 2 newspapers, the New York Times and the LA Times. And
like major publications.
And afterwards, my feeling about it, it wasn't as bad as the Canadian critics said it was, but it wasn't nearly as good as the New York Times. I figured if you come in, you have your popcorn, and you have a few laughs and a few scares, and that was about it. But yeah, we were very pleased with the results of the film.
Amazing. I'm sure you all are too. Now I feel like we all want to know, Michael Ironside. He must have been just a treasure to work with.
Yeah, he was the nominal star that we had. Everyone else was unknowns, and they said, well, we got to have a star. And Michael Ironside at the time, he'd done the David Cronenberg films, so it was well known in the States. So they sent the script to him. I think he liked it because he wasn't a leering maniac in this one. He was a sedate high school principal. I remember we picked the glasses for him and so forth. So he liked that, and he was a total professional. I mean, he was always totally prepared, knew how to hit a mark. I remember one of the things you want from actors, say, can you drive a car? And of course every actor says they can drive a car. But we were doing, and I think it's in the movie, but we were doing a shot. It's the front of the school, and the car drives up in foreground, and there's Michael Ironside in the driver's seat. We're looking across him in profile. Well, he had to come down about 30 miles an hour and hit it exactly so that he would hit it dead on. He did it in the first take. No markers, nothing. He just said, okay, I got it, backed up, rolled the camera, and he just nailed at it. Now that guy is really good.
I mean,
But he was,
Ironside's a pro.
he was marvelous to work with, and yeah, it was a joy working with him.
So he may have been the nominal star of this film, but the breakout role clearly went to Wendy Lyons as Vicky Carpenter. And she, before doing Prom Night 2, hadn't really done anything before. What was casting her in this like?
We did a lot of casting in Toronto and took our time. She came in fairly early, and she was my choice right off the bat. I just thought she did, and we saw, and she came in. She was like the third person we saw. We said, well, if we find somebody that good as the third person came in, we should look at some more. Maybe we'll find somebody even better. But nobody came in that was as good as her, and I thought we ended up with a very good cast. Beth Gondek, Terry Hawks, Bev Hendry were the girls in it. Did I miss somebody? Oh, Lisa.
Lisa, of course.
Yes. Who was marvelous to work with, and she came into Toronto 2 years ago at Horrorama. Or was it 3 years?
3 years ago,
Might
I
have been
think,
3 years
before
ago.
COVID.
And I hadn't seen her since we shot the film, and she looks exactly the same.
She does.
I mean, it was dead scary. I mean, you know, bags under my eyes and lines and age, and that. She looked exactly the same.
Just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And like you liked Wendy Lyons so much, you ended up working with her a few more times after this.
Yeah,
you did the Friday the 13th TV show.
Yeah, the TV show Friday the 13th. I had her in that one, and we put her into a room full of live snakes. And she was in another one. I forget. At that time, I was doing a lot of episodic TV, but I always try and find a spot for Wendy.
That's good. That's a good relationship you have with her. Also, if you want to see Wendy Lyons now, she's in episode 5 of Cabinet of Curiosities on Netflix, and she looks just as good. All right, so we have some time for some audience questions. Does anyone have anything they would like to ask the director? Oh, I saw a hand go up almost immediately in that back corner.
Me?
Yes.
Hi. I just
Hello.
want to say this is the first time I ever saw this movie. It was amazing. And as a former prom queen, I absolutely agree Mary Lou did everything she should. I'm on her side. But I have to ask, you know, they said that fire stunt was the longest ever fire stunt done on film. Is it still that, and how was that to direct?
Probably not. I mean, the fire safety regulations are much better now than they were then. So I'm sure somebody with the chemicals and the components they use for burn, somebody's been able to do a much longer burn than that. But at the time, yeah, it was the longest burn. And Dwayne McLean, who was a stunt coordinator, organized that. And I mean, we only did it the once. I didn't want to do it more than once. And I think we had 4 or maybe 5 cameras on that, and fire extinguishers just out of camera range. I mean, after they got it, and there was no cut said there. That was Dwayne was the guy who said that's it, and he just rushed in with the things and not injured at all. She just came out fine. So,
Thank God, right, for those safety protocols.
It was quite scary to watch.
All right, I saw someone in this area. Yes, you, sir.
I just wanted to know what were your influences or like films that inspired you to make your style for this movie the way it is?
At the time, I guess it would have been Carrie comes to mind. Certainly, I'm a Kubrick fan. The Shining had been released, I guess, about 5 or 6 years before we did it.
The Evil Dead, maybe?
Which film?
Evil Dead.
No.
Hard pass, sorry.
I gotta tell you, I'm not a big horror fan, so and I know the script is replete with all kinds of references to other horror films, which Ron Oliver, who did a great job writing the script, I mean, he was just amazing. He knew every nuance of every horror film, and I really didn't. Which I don't know. I think I was bringing maybe something fresh to the horror genre, but it's the only horror film I've ever done. So, and afterwards, because it was semi-successful, I did get a lot of offers to other horror films. But to me, it's got to be the script. You spend the better part of a year on a film or longer, and you've got to really want to do it. And so I always judge what I want to do. Am I excited by the script? And I think the film I did practically right after that was Where the Spirit Lives, which was about residential schools, the first time that had been done on film. And I think the writer of Where the Spirit Lives is sitting in the audience there. There he is.
Oh my God, hello! Yes!
He also wrote another film I did, The Shattered City, The Halifax Explosion. He was a writer on that as well. And a great book on the Donnellys, which he did a couple of years ago. And there's a member of the Mary Lou camera department here, Dave Perkins. Where
Oh yeah, Dave, where are you?
Oh,
Right in the back corner. Woo! So much good Canadian alumni here.
Yeah.
Speaking of Ron Oliver, so when he was working on this film, he asked Wes Craven for some advice, and Wes Craven basically said, give him a scare, give him a hard-on, and send him home. Do you feel like that is what a horror movie should be?
Well, maybe in part, but I think there's got to be a lot more than that. It's really interesting when you're trying to do a scare, or when you're putting something together, and then see it with an audience. I remember going into one of the back rows in a theater when it was first released, and I sat on an aisle, and there was a guy by himself sitting there with a popcorn, and I would just gauge how successful we were by, of course, I knew when a scare was coming, and I just watched him, and he kept literally spilling his popcorn. Oh, that one worked, and of course other times, no, that didn't work or whatever. One that surprised me was the rocking horse, which a lot of people made. It was just a prop in the room. We didn't think anything of it. Well, just hop on the rocking horse and do something. We'll film something. I mean, that surprised me that everyone mentioned the rocking horse. Oh, that was great. Well, not a whole lot of thought went into it. But I was very pleased. I was determined to do everything, all the effects in camera. And it was pre the digital era, but there's only one digital effect, and that's when the sparks come off the computer into Brock Simpson's eyes. The rest was actually done live to camera, which I'm very pleased with. And Jim Doyle, who was a bit of a pain to work with because he was so meticulous and so slow, but he put together, he made those effects really very, very good, I thought.
I mean, true. Now, before we're done tonight, the review does have something they would like to give to Bruce.
Money? Okay.
Yeah, we can talk about the royalties you make on these films when they get played, I mean.
0.
Oh, here it is.
Oh, any other questions out there?
Yes,
Yeah.
the hand right here.
Any plans for a Blu-ray or any home video?
Yeah.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, there is on the Facebook. I've noticed there's a prom night group or something, and everyone keeps looking for the Blu-ray. I would love to see a Blu-ray too, but it's hard to know who owns the film. Samuel Golden owned it at one point, and I've got a DVD that's got MGM. I mean, it seems every 3 years somebody else transfers the rights, so and I don't know who owns the rights now, I have no idea. So yeah, it would be nice if they did that.
Hopefully we can get that soon and champion it, because who wouldn't love Prom Night 2, Hello Mary Lou, with a Bruce Pittman commentary. So the review would like to present you with a framed poster of tonight to prove that you have come full circle with the review.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's give it up one more time for Bruce